Yeah. So, yeah, just remember, like, how do you get to bring this awareness of parts, of your parts, this awareness of your attachment style, right? Where it's like anxious, secure, fearful, avoidant, right? How you bring like this knowledge and this wisdom that we're going over now into the relational field, which is where we're touching today.
Yeah. So I'd like to just share a vulnerable and personal just anecdote around a young boy that's, lives in me and is a part of me and shows up now and again. And so when I was growing up, I was in a household with three children and two adults who were often in dysregulated states. They were often in conflict or avoidance patterns, and there was a lot of stimulation. There was a lot of fighting. There was uh, verbal violence, physical violence, emotional violence in my home on a pretty regular basis. And so, as a young boy, I learned to seclude myself in the basement. And I had this little yellow chair that I would go downstairs and isolate myself so that I could bring myself back into regulation, so that I could create safety in my system, even though there was chaos and unsafety directly above me. And so, this young boy who really needs safety in relationships, safety in space, sometimes this little boy in me gets kicked up. And what do? I remove myself and I isolate myself so that I can self regulate. And that takes me out of connection. It takes me out of being in relationship with other, and it isolates myself. So there are these ways in which as we get to know these younger parts of ourselves and their strategies and their needs and how they react in order to, in service of you, in service of protection, service of safety, in service of regulation, and how quickly we can go into a pattern like that. And so sometimes I will take myself and into a basement, and I will be in a contained environment where I know that I'll be able to self-regulate. I know that I'll be able to feel the level of safety that I need, that this young boy needs to feel. And so it's important to have an awareness in our relationships, because safety and security are the foundation for any healthy connection, any healthy relationship. And so we're gonna go into discussing a little bit more of how you know when you're in a part versus when you're not in a part, and just the importance of being able to have an awareness around when you're going into a pattern, when you're going into a part, and the impacts of that. The impacts of that can be devastating. The impacts of that can be just little impacts, and those little impacts over time really define the relationship that you're in. And so,
Yeah, and this is right. I mean, this is what we touched on last week too. Is so when we're in this part, it actually is an identity that's within us. These different ages within us. So how we've talked about it is like each part can serve as a purpose or has a role in our lives. For example, there could be a part that feels anxious in social situations, which should just be labeled the anxious part. Another part seeks approval from others, the pleaser, and a confident part that handles challenges effectively, the leader. And so, like any feeling that you're having that goes into a pretty defined role actually gets to be clarified as a part because it's not you. You are completely connected to the divine, spirit, source. You are well regulated. You have breath that is open and expanding. expansive. You are tapped in and deeply, deeply connected and resourced. So anything that's different than that, and we can switch in and out of it, right? We got to switch different states of being from regulated to anxious to avoidant to self-soothing. We can completely shift states very quickly. Same with the parts. So this isn't like, oh, now that you get it, like, oh, that was the anxious part. Let me like track and make my mind go there. Oh no, now I'm in the sad part. Oh no, now I'm here. It's just right? Just I get awareness that this is raw when I'm really regulated. Something that happens for me is I know when I'm in my resource regulated state, my clairvoyance is really shiny. It's really bright. My sight is actually really different. And as soon as I become dysregulated, it's probably one of my first thing that goes away is sight. And then like I'll start playing with my hands because I actually start getting numb in my fingers, which is then why I pick my hands because I don't want to dissociate. So my body, right before my mind's even like, oh, you're dissociating. Look, oh, you went far away. It's like, oh no, I don't want that. Here, pick your hands instead. Like even just like playing with my fingertips, it's like no, stay here. Like you want you to stay here. And it's like my sight will leave, fingertips, and then I'll notice like my stomach actually starts like churning, and I start holding this like gripping, almost like rigid motion. Like, no, I want it this way. Like, oh, I don't want to dissociate. I don't want to go. I don't like what's happening. Like, ugh. So these are my body cues. And I'll start like tensioning up my jaw a bit. Probably like with my hands, start like holding my body a little bit differently. Start like concaving my chest in a little bit.
So as Ra is going through this, just notice for yourself in your own body, where do you hold tension? Where are these patterns showing up in your own bodies? Is it in your jaw? For many people, there's clenching that can happen in the jaw. Your neck might become tight. Yeah, I see that people are sharing jaws. Yes. Perhaps down here in the diaphragm, in the solar plexus, there can be a lot of tension or tightness. I know that's a pattern that I have down there. Or even low back pain. Yeah, even, thank you for sharing in the chat. Even low back pain. I'm a chiropractor and a body worker as well. And so I see this all the time in practice where there is a direct connection between the sensations and the pains in the body, which is why we go through the body in order to awaken and heal in our programs. And so just notice for yourself, continue to just notice where do I hold tension when I start to feel uncomfortable, when I start to feel a lack of safety, when I start to feel an emotion, whether it's a collapse and a going down and in, or a coming out with anger.
And once we come out with anger, right, that would be, as we discussed last week, a protective part. It's actually using this hand as it's protecting something really sacred over here that usually lives, into the heart. Right, so that's the actual part would be, what's it touching that's sacred? It feels really innocent, it feels really sweet. It's holding something so beautiful it wants to share. And then, it's feeling missed by the world once again. And then you have this beautiful protector that shows up. It is holding this sacred thing. It knows how beautiful it is, and you are not going to see it. And this protector may be angry. This protector may be mean. And just bring the awareness, right? This is a protector. So when we start coming out in like this motion, we're protecting. As soon as energy goes towards someone, it's because there was something really sweet, a really innocent part that made a reach to be seen to humanity. It got missed once again, went back into the body. Nope, it's not safe. And then its incredible protector shows up and goes, it's your fault. And it's that energy. And it's just how to tell, like, oh, that's a protector now. You can start tracking it a little bit better of like what's happening within you. So much of this work, right, where Jill and I have talked about so many times, it's these continuous touch-ins. So as you're reaching, as we're noticing, it can start being met, and that's where the repatterning starts happening and unfolding within life and without and through your body. And when we get in the relational field, what's so sacred about the relational field is this is like the divine playing field. Thank you for me, how I look at it and how I hold it with clients that I work with in coupleship. And I think how Dylan and Manalina do as well. Of you are such a yes to each other into creating that safety that all these parts that have reached so many times and been missed by who they thought was so safe and secure, their parents, they're gonna come out now. And they're never gonna stop coming out in a conscious relationship. That's kind of the best part. Actually, you're gonna keep testing, oh, is this safe? Oh, is this safe?
Let me do this part. Is that okay?
You do know.
So how do we know that we are in a part? How do we know that we are identifying as a part? Because having an awareness of when we're identified with a part is really the most important thing. It's the first line of choice, right? Because if we can recognize that we're identified in a part, if we can recognize in our body, in our mind, in our awareness that that's what's happening, because it's a process, right? Everything is a process. And identifying with a part can be a very rapid process. It can go very quickly. So being able to recognize, I'm starting to identify with a part. I'm coming from a part. Oh, this is a part. I'm actually in a part right now. That is a really, really important just level of awareness. So how do we know that we're in a part? Well, from a mental aspect, we know if we're in judgment of another, if we're in a story about ourselves or another. I'm not good enough. Oh, maybe they don't want me. Oh, I don't want them. Oh, I hope they get the hell out of here as soon as possible. Right? So if you're collapsing with thought, if you are pushing with thought, if you're wrapped in a story, that's one way mentally that you can identify. Now, what happens usually before the mind starts to go into these thought forms is the body starts to go into a dysregulation. And what do we mean by that? Well, just going from a standard nervous system approach of when you're in regulation, when you're in a restful state, when you're in an easeful state, when love and connection are available and palpable for you, that's when you're in a regulated state. Dysregulation is when you're in a fight or flight, when you're in a freeze. Welcome. When you're in a fawn. So anytime you're in a dysregulated state, it often shows up first in the body. And how does it show up in the body? What are some cues to know, right? So fight, flight, you might see that they're having trouble making eye contact. Their eyes might be darting back and forth. This is from an other perspective, noticing in your partner, if they're going into a dysregulated state. In your own body, if you start to feel an emotion bubbling up, if you start feeling sensation in the body, there might be butterflies in the stomach, there might be cramping happening, you might feel a tightening in and around the chest. You might feel so uncomfortable in your body because you really need to change something. You need to get out of here. You need to fight, or you need to run away. So starting to recognize in the body, or it could be a collapse. If it's a freeze, someone might start going internal. They might start closing their eyes and withdrawing from connection, withdrawing from the space. They might close down, their chest might start to cave in, and they might start protect themselves. You might start putting hands on yourself. You might start noticing, oh gosh, I need to take care of myself. I need to hold my arms closer to my body. Maybe sometimes some cues are when you start putting your hands around your neck. That's a cue of, oh, I'm needing some self-soothing. I'm needing some protection. There's something that's signaling unsafety. Your heart rate might start going up. You might start feeling heat in the body. So really the cues that we're wanting to point to are anytime you start to feel a foreign sensation or a different sensation in the body, is just to start to notice, is this me going into a dysregulated state? Am I starting to feel levels of unsafety? Am I starting to feel a need for protection, as Ra was describing before? So just notice if anything is coming up for you as you're listening to this. When you start to feel a space, maybe it's you hear a sound, or someone walks in the room, or you're confronted by something or someone, where does that start to show up in the body?
Yeah. So just right now, we're gonna start doing a little bit off things, a little bit of triggering right now to find where,
Thank you for sharing.
yeah, where it is really like gets you in your body first. So want to invite you to recall a challenging relationship moment. So pick a relationship that actually feels really safe to you overall. And maybe actually do have a beloved right now, or it's with a child. One of your like safe relationships that really irk your system. Maybe it's with a parent, like one of the safe ones, or ideally safe ones. And just want to invite you in to recall a moment with them. Maybe it's something they said to you. Maybe it was a judgment they had. Right? You were sharing something really sweet. You were really excited about a plan with them. You'd waited weeks to go to this event, and then they responded something. Maybe they didn't answer their phone that day. Or no, they said something that could be really personal to you. Like used your personal words or story against you in an argument. Something that just like hurt, like deeply, like you remember one of these moments. Like, oh, like my trust was broken. You were lied to, maybe you were cheated on in a moment. Maybe your kid told you that they hated you for the first time. Or they continuously picked someone else over you. And so just holding this moment. Yeah. And as you can see it in your mind's eye, just see where is it in your body where it's actually storing this miss. This isn't the first miss. It's missed over and over and over again. And like even just notice like what part of your head is like near your temples where your jaw locks. So towards like the back of your head. It's even like where you sleep and you rest, and you're like, oh, I can't actually rest into sleep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so just finding this pattern, yeah, in the body and getting so intimate right now. Wow, this place in your body has reached so many times. Oh, it's been missed. And now it's just stored there. Yeah. Even opening up your heart with compassion to this part, of understanding the part, but really getting intimate with this place in the body. Ah.
So what can we do when we're in a state of dysregulation? Once we've recognized that we're going into that state, when we're going into a state of dysregulation and we're going into identifying with this part, what can we do? We can request presence of another, of a friend, of a partner, of a husband, a wife. We can request presence so that we can be met in this part and come back into a regulated state and actually have this part be met, because that is all it's desiring for, is connection.
So letting that part even notice right now, wow, there are 5 beings here right now. And that, just here in this group field, really present with these parts. Right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually not alone. Yeah, just letting the part you're being intimate with in the body, just feel the group feel. There's nothing to change, nothing to fix. It's just like, oh, there's actual presence and awareness and other that's here with it right now. And just feel and experience the magic of the unfolding that just gets to happen with that. So this is what Dylan's pointing to, that you get to make a request with a partner, with a friend. Say, hey, I don't need any words. I don't need any fixing. I don't need any opinions. Can you just hold how much you love me right now? And I can just go through my own experience. Can you just hold how much you love me?
And where they're viewing from and where we're viewing from is a particular kind of viewing. And it's coming from a place of love and presence. Viewing from a place of, there is nothing wrong here. Viewing from a place of radical inclusion. Oh, this is what's here now. well, I have love for this too. Oh, this is what's here now. Ah, there's also love for this. And so the viewing from is equally important. So this is a space that we view from very often, especially when we're in session with people and with each other. And this is the viewing from, this is the space we're resting in right now. We're resting in our own sovereignty, in our own space, and we're viewing with open hearts. We're viewing with unconditional love. Love for the sake of love. Love as an act of service, as an act of service for humanity and for ourselves. And other may not be available. There may not be an other available to meet you in the arising, to meet you with what is emerging, what is arising in your system. The sensations, the emotions. And so sometimes we'll have to regulate ourselves, and that's okay too. And that is okay too. And how we can do that effectively and efficiently, right? Because we don't want to stay in these states of dysregulation. The longer we stay in a state of dysregulation, the harder it is to come out of it and the longer it takes to come back into regulation. So we want to get really good with our practices of coming back. And there are many different practices for that. One practice I really appreciate is noticing, of course, that you're going into or you're in a state of dysregulation. Locating a sensation in the body, locating a sensation in the body, whether it be in the stomach, in the solar plexus, in the heart, in the jaw, in the mind, wherever it is in your body, wherever you're feeling the sensation, there's no getting it right or wrong. You just follow the intelligence of the body, because the body, the wisdom of the body will guide us. If we practice and we learn to listen and attune and connect with. So as it guides us into that place, laying a hand there, bringing yourself into a safe environment, a contained environment, whether that's your car, whether that's a room, laying down on the floor, sitting upright. I prefer to sit upright. And just laying a hand there and starting to bring the breath into that sensation. Not trying to change anything or fix anything, simply meeting the sensation as it is. And allowing anything that wants to move through the body, any emotion, any movement, any shaking, any yawning, any kind of release. Opening up the awareness, opening up your awareness to allow and permission whatever is there and just saying, yes, I'm with you. And there's often a release. A release will help you come back into regulation much, much faster and much more efficiently. And so that is a self to self, which is okay too, because sometimes there isn't someone there that's available. And I just want to point to one more piece of this, and that is maybe there is someone there who's available, but there's also a noticing of, are they available? Are they really available? And one way we can notice is once we start to develop our ability to track, right? To track ourselves, to track other, we can notice when someone is in a regulated state or not. Are they resting? How is their posture? Are they open and available? Are they resting in their body? Or are they fidgeting? Are they doing something? Is there a lot of movement? Is there some unsettledness? Are they able to maintain eye contact? Or is it difficult to look you in the eye, right? Because if we're reaching for presence, right? We're reaching for support to come back into regulation. It's helpful to know if that support is actually going to be supportive, because that other person, the other, right, your partner, your friend, they may really desire to support you, right? They're like, yes, 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 of course I want to support you. I want to show up for you. I love you. I'm here. But maybe they're not actually able to in that moment. And so starting to recognize these cues and starting to be able to track them for ourselves is a very helpful practice, especially in partnership, especially in union, right? It's a way of supporting ourselves and supporting each other in service of the relationship.
And it's important to get really clear about it on both sides, right? Like making very clear agreements where if you ask for present support, you could remind them, I don't need any talking. I just need you to actually be here right now. And just hold ground in safety and love me. That's it, no talking. But make sure when they say yes, like go over it when you're both well resourced, the agreements. But when they say yes, they're really saying yes to that. Because if they say yes, and they're not very present with you and you are doing a deep share of a precious part, you will re-traumatize your part. And it'll just feed the story of whatever your story is about the other. Oh, I tried and they're still unsafe. Oh, the masculine can't hold me. What was I even thinking? Oh, women are the worst. I really don't have any friends. Like I'm in the wrong location. No one gets me here. You know, whatever it could be, just going over when you're both regulated, those commitments. So when there's a yes being said, so clear what that actually means, what is needed. Everyone has the replay of this. You can play this for your other of what that means.
Yeah. And so there's one other piece that's really important, which often happens, which is one of the inspirations for this this sharing, this teaching today is what often happens in relationship is we're often in a part and we don't know it, and we're reaching and we're met with reaction, and because we allow ourselves to stay in a part, we continue to fuel the fire. We continue to fuel the fire and fuel the conflict, and that gets us tied into the relationship in a very dysregulated and unhealthy way. But it keeps us in that relationship because that part, to that part, conflict was connection. To that part, these dysregulated and uncomfortable ways of being met by a parent, right? Because that young part was seeking regulation from a parent or a guardian or an elder. As a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, like you're not actually able to regulate, like you're looking for support in regulating your nervous system. You're still learning how to be in this body, how to be with your emotions, right? It's the responsibility of the adults around to actually help you come into regulation and meet you in that space. And so we can often get stuck in really unhealthy and toxic and damaging relationships because we think there's bonding there. That's what the part thinks bonding is.
Yeah, and
And
just sitting with that for a moment.
yeah,
Right? Like, oh, is there a relationship where that's come out? Oh, is there a friendship that ended? It was like such a deep friendship. And you're like, oh, wow, actually, this is toxic. Like, just breathing into, wow, they're actually playing and merged with this part. Of course, I thought that was love. Like, where that deep, just breath of holding your sweet one is your child. And that's the best your parents loved you, or your grandparents, your aunt and uncle, or whatever it is. Whoever taught you how to love. Who ever taught you what connection is.
mm.
Ah. Hmm.
And so as we're going in and sharing all of this information, it's important to know that divine union doesn't mean perfect union, doesn't mean always pristine and perfect, and like we we can kind of get obsessed with, oh, it needs to always be solid, the ground always needs to feel stable, and that's just not true. We're human beings. We bring all of ourselves into relationship. We bring all of ourselves into divine union, because true divine union is everything. It's every part of you gets to be here. Every
Hmm.
shadow of you, every shameful part, every scared part, they all get to be here
Mhm.
and get to be met. And we get to grow together. We get to evolve together into more and more beautiful expressions of what it means to be in loving connection, in divine union, what it means to be
Hmm.
in family. And we continue to grow together.
For me, such a big component, like a lighthouse that keeps you pointed at what this union is together is, what are you actually in devotion to? We have parts that show up, and we knew as soon as we met each other, oh, we have a whole new life path that got illuminated if we choose each other. Like, oh, this is our reward that we get to play with right now. Even just like in friendship, like, oh, this is a reward right now that we get to meet and that we get to choose this. Like, oh, we were going on these other paths and like life was going to be really great. And like, oh, I didn't even know that this path existed for me, for you, for us. But we were in like deep reverence and devotion to. Oh, it gets to be illuminated together. Oh, that's what it looks like. So we're in our parts. Like, of course, this is the safest relationship I've ever been in. My anxious one has been completely up in parts. I used to have panic attacks constantly as a child. And then throughout our union, they'd go like 8 hours, then 4 hours during COVID. That was like a big checkpoint for us. Throughout, you'd like get paralyzed and just so frozen in them. and I'm at like 10 to 15 minutes in like the 5 years. Why? Because of course there are parts. But this is like the partner that I get to be being met in that with. And my anxious one is just a great checkpoint one because it's so timed, right? As a child and being put on Adderall or different medicines, it was all based on time. They'd be like, well, oh, she had an anxiety attack for 2 hours in class today. Oh, she took the SAT and like fell on the floor crying at the desk. These like weird moments that they're weird, but like me as a teenager, really remember. They're trackable. But being with Dylan, it's not that it's been perfect, that there've been no red flags.
It hasn't been perfect?
No.
No.
And it's not that there aren't red flags either. Even when we were meeting each other, it's like, oh, that's an interesting quality. Oh, that's an interesting way of being. Okay. Well, are we in devotion to seeing where this energy leakage is? Are we in devotion to seeing which part is really playing in meeting it together because we're pointed on this way, and to get onto this illuminated path and walking together, we actually need to hold hands and meet there. Oh, yes, we actually are in such a deep consensual devotion to that. Oh, if we don't have the tools, are we in devotion to learn, to find our teachers, to go to therapy, to be met? Yes. Okay. So it just keeps coming back of like, oh, this is the path that we're in such a deep devotion to. That can actually hold everything else that comes up because it's not perfect. We're human beings. How could it be perfect? And if you meet a perfect human being, follow them. See how that's possible. Sit at their feet. So one of my favorite things lately you're gonna be doing when we are dysregulated, or when I'm maybe getting really activated from a part being shared, is I've started naming just what's happening in my body. And instead of even just going frozen, like I explained, my jaw kind of clenches, my fingers go numb and I start playing with them first, and the jaw, chest caves, and I start kind of holding. It's like my whole womb and energy closes, like I'm not taking this in. I can hear, but like I'm not letting it penetrate my body. Instead of just being like that, and Dylan, maybe thinking, oh, I'm really sharing a big thing and you're not receiving me because you look like you're a tight rod right now. I'm just naming it. Like, hey, I'm listening to you. I hear you. And my whole stomach just feels churned, like my jaw's tight, I feel concaved, and this is what's happening. And I do hear you. I'm listening.
Yeah, and this is a really important piece to what I was speaking to earlier of feeding the fire of conflict, fueling the fire of conflict. This is a way when you're in relationship of taking ownership of what's coming up for you and redirecting. So you're not reacting from this place. You're not trying to come into connection from this dysregulated place. You're simply sharing the sensations in the body. Oh, hearing you say that, I'm feeling tightness in my chest. Hearing you say that, I'm feeling my jaw starting to clench up. And why that doesn't add fuel to the fire is because you're not directly reacting to anything in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You're simply taking ownership of what you're feeling in your body. And that actually starts to create safety with the other person. Because you're not putting the responsibility on the other, right? You're not reacting or fueling the fire or saying, why are you saying that? It's really upsetting to me to hear you say that. How dare you? What's happening? Oh, thank you for sharing on the chat. I love all the shares on the chat. It really makes this so much more engaging and alive for us, and keeps us in connection, right, in this class. And so naming those bodily sensations is taking responsibility for yourself, for your body and what's showing up. And it allows the other person, the other, to hear you, to notice you, tuning in to what's alive for you, what's happening in your body. And it starts to create a little bit of safety, because when we're in a part or we're identified with a part, everything around us is evidence of unsafety, right? So anything around us could be perceived as a threat or an attack, right? So even an emotion in the person over there, if they're just reacting from that place, right? It just fuels that fire and creates more and more unsafety. So this is just a really simple practice, a beautiful practice to bring you back into self-responsibility and create just a little bit of an opportunity for safety in the connection with this other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And next week, and continuing in the next session, we will go into more of actually where you get to honor these places in your body, and in that protection, start understanding really healthy boundaries that are clear and grounded and concise for you. And actually bring that in to the partnership. It's from these places that the real safety is getting created, right? And it all comes from within you, understanding your attachment style, the parts within you, how to identify when you're regulated and dysregulated, and it's a part. We're giving a mapping system, and then wonderful from there. Okay, where are your beautiful boundaries that actually do protect you, right? Because the yelling, perfectly perfect, yes, right? Because the protector that just yells or goes to the fire, that's protecting maybe a really sweet 4-year-old. They get pretty fiery at 4. Well, and that protector is 4. It's wonderful. They've done a great job. Well, now you're older. So now you, as a resource, beautiful being devoted to their path, gets to figure out, okay, wow, when my 4-year-old anger protector comes up, that was so missed at 4, oh, well, my adult can notice that coming online and say, oh, actually, here's my adult boundary now for that. So this is what's coming next week, is we're going to keep deepening. Yeah, because Dylan and I are so devoted that it's actually being met. These places of reach are going to be met. They're going to have context. They're going to have a mapping system.
And we are so deeply devoted to more healthy, secure relationships on this planet. We're devoted to each and every one of you having the relationship of your dreams, having a relationship that continues to meet you in all of these ways, where you can fully lean in.
And this Friday morning, Mountain Time, July 5th, I am hosting a constellation workshop, and there will be many of these, but this one is on divine feminine and masculine union.